If you were shooting in the late 70s, the 80s, or the 90s, and Olympus ever lived in your hands, chances are you still remember at least one of these lenses. Maybe you used one every single day. Maybe you wanted one and never quite got there. And one of them still feels so complete, so perfectly judged that it is genuinely hard to talk about it without sounding a little nostalgic. Welcome back to Alt Buzz Lenses, where great glass gets the respect it always deserved. Subscribe before this list is done because this one goes deep. Now, let us get into it. At number 5, we have the Olympus OM Zuiko 50mm f1.4. And if you ever shot Olympus back then, there is a very strong chance this lens was already on your camera before you even made a conscious decision about it. It was just there. It was the starting point, the everyday companion, the lens that came with the body or followed shortly after, and somehow it never felt like a compromise. That is a harder thing to achieve than it sounds. Because a kit lens, a standard lens, a lens that ships with a system and sits at the accessible end of a lineup, that lens has to carry the weight of a first impression. And the 50mm f1.4 carried it extraordinarily well. The Olympus OM system was built around a central philosophy that serious photography should not have to be physically demanding. Smaller bodies, cleaner lines, less weight on your shoulder at the end of a long day. And the 50mm f1.4 carried that philosophy completely. It was compact in a way that other manufacturers were not even attempting at the time. And yet the image quality was never apologetic about itself. The rendering was clean, the low light performance at FE 1.4 gave you real confidence in situations where other lenses started to struggle. And the build had that particular Olympus quality, the kind that felt engineered rather than simply manufactured. There was a consistency to it. A feeling that every element had been considered, not just specified. If you ever shot portraits in available light or walked a city in the evening with this lens on, you probably remember the way it handled without even thinking about it. It just worked. There was no moment of resistance, no feeling that you were negotiating with the glass. You made a decision, the lens responded, and the frame was there. And for a lot of photographers, that 50mm Zuiko was the lens that made them realize the OM system was worth staying with. It was not flashy, it was not rare, but it was quietly, consistently excellent, and that is exactly why it opens this list. Because every great countdown needs a foundation. And this lens is exactly that. At number 4, we have the Olympus OM Zuiko 21mm f2. And this is where the list starts asking a bigger question, because a 21mm wide angle at f2 is not a lens you design by accident, and it is not a lens you build if you are playing it safe. This is a lens that takes real optical ambition to bring into the world, and Olympus brought it in with complete confidence. There is something about the way this lens exists that tells you everything you need to know about how seriously Olympus took the OM system. Because this was not a gap filler. This was not a lens that appeared in the lineup. Because the product range needed a wide-angle option. This was a deliberate statement. The 21mm f2 is the lens that quietly dismantled a particular assumption about the OM system. Because there was a tendency, especially among photographers who had not spent time with the full Zuiko lineup, to think of Olympus as a compact system that was very good at normal lenses and perhaps less serious about the extremes. The 21mm f2 existed specifically to prove that assumption wrong. This was not a wide-angle lens built for convenience. This was wide-angle glass built with genuine prestige, the kind of optical engineering that held its own against manufacturers who had been building serious glass for decades longer. The distortion control was precise, the corner performance was considered, and the speed, that f2 aperture at 21mm, gave you a capability that very few photographers expected from a system of this size. The handling was immaculate. The field of view was dramatic without being gimmicky. And that f2 aperture gave you a low light capability at the wide end that was genuinely unusual for the era. If you ever used one, there was almost certainly a moment where you looked at a frame you had taken and felt something shift in how you thought about Olympus. Because this was not a system trying to keep up. This was a system that had already arrived. Maybe you never owned the 21mm. Maybe it sat just beyond where your budget could reach, or lived in a display case you passed on the way to something more practical. But if you ever saw one in a camera shop, picked it up, felt the weight of it in your hand, looked through it, you remembered the name. That kind of lens stays with you long after the shop visit ends. We are halfway through the list, and things are only getting more serious from here. If this is landing the way it should, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses right now. It takes 1 second, it costs nothing, and it means you never miss a video like this one. We are just getting to the lenses that most people never owned, but never forgot. Let us keep going. At number 3, we have the Olympus OM Zuiko 100mm f2. This is the portrait lens that older photographers still talk about quietly, not loudly. Not the way people talk about gear they want others to know they have used. Quietly. The way you talk about something that earned your respect in actual use, over actual time, in actual conditions that mattered. There is a particular kind of credibility that attaches itself to lenses like this one. Not the credibility of rarity or price, but the credibility of performance. Of a lens that was asked to do serious work and did it without flinching. The 100mm f2 was never the lens everyone owned. It sat at a price point and a focal length that made it aspirational rather than universal. Something you were aware of, something you perhaps tried at a rental or borrowed from a friend, something you filed away in a part of your memory marked for later. But the photographers who did own it, who did build their portrait work around it, tend to speak about it with a very particular kind of certainty. Because this was not just a fast telephoto. This was a lens with genuine optical refinement. Smooth rendering that separated subject from background with elegance rather than aggression, precise focus that rewarded careful technique, and a build quality that felt entirely consistent with the most serious intentions. Nothing about it felt provisional. Nothing about it felt like Olympus was hedging. This is where the OM system stopped feeling like a compact system with good glass and started feeling like a manufacturer with real optical elegance at its core. The background separation was beautiful in a way that felt considered rather than accidental. The subject rendering was precise without ever becoming harsh or analytical. There was warmth to it. A human quality that portrait lenses either have or do not, and this one had it completely. If you shot portraits in the film era and had access to one of these, even briefly, even once, you already know exactly what this section is about. And if you never did, this is the lens that should have been on your list, the one that got away before you knew it was leaving. At number 2, we have the Olympus OM Zuiko Auto T 180mm f2. And this is where the conversation changes entirely, because everything up to this point has been about familiarity, about aspiration, about lenses that lived in the real world of photographers who were working and shooting and building their craft across years and decades. The 180mm f2 is something different. This is not a lens you remember from everyday use. This is not a lens that sat on your camera while you walked through a city or worked a portrait session in natural light. This is a halo lens, a lens that existed because Olympus decided at a certain point that it wanted to show the world exactly how far the OM system could go when ambition was the only constraint. And ambition, it turned out, could go very far indeed. A 180mm telephoto at f2 is not a modest undertaking. It is the kind of specification that demands serious optical engineering, serious mechanical precision, and a very clear understanding of what professional photographers working at the highest level actually needed from a long telephoto. Olympus delivered all of it. The speed was extraordinary for a lens of this reach. The rendering carried the same elegance that defined the best of the Zuiko lineup, smooth, controlled, with a confidence in its own output that never needed to announce itself. And the build communicated, clearly and without ambiguity, that this was not a consumer product. This was professional glass. the kind that gets passed down rather than sold off. This is the moment in the list where nostalgia gives way to something closer to awe. Because when you understand what Olympus was doing with a lens like this, what it took to design it, to manufacture it, to bring it to market at a level of quality that justified its existence, you stop thinking about the OM system as a compact option with good optics, and start understanding it as a full professional ecosystem that could compete in exotic, demanding, unforgiving territory. Maybe you never held a 180mm f2 in your hands. Most photographers never did. But if you knew it existed, if you ever saw it in a catalog or a magazine or behind glass in a dealer's cabinet, it changed how you thought about what Olympus was truly capable of. Some lenses prove a point. This one proved an entire philosophy. We are one lens away from number one, and before we get there, leave a comment right now. Tell us which Olympus lens you still own, still remember, or still regret selling. We read every single comment on this channel, and this is exactly the kind of conversation we build AltBuzz lenses for. Subscribe if you have not already. You are going to want to be here for what comes next. At number 1, we have the Olympus OM Zuiko Auto Macro 90mm f2. And if you have been watching this list from the beginning, you probably felt this one coming. Not because it was the obvious choice, not because it is the most famous name in the Zuiko lineup, but because everything this list has been building toward points toward a lens that does not choose between qualities. The elegance of the 50mm, the ambition of the 21mm, the refinement of the 100mm, the audacity of the 180mm. The 90mm f2 macro does not pick one of those things and do it well. It simply has all of them at once, in a single optical formula, in a package that still does not feel like it should be possible. The word that keeps coming back when photographers talk about this lens is complete. And it is the right word, because what Olympus achieved here was not a specialized tool with a narrow and specific purpose. It was a lens that understood speed, understood precision, understood close focus capability, and understood rendering quality, and somehow managed to get every single one of them right without sacrificing any of the others. You could shoot portraits with it, and the rendering would give you exactly the warmth and separation you were looking for. You could shoot macro, and the close focus capability was not a compromise addition. It was a core part of the optical design considered from the beginning rather than engineered in at the end. You could take it into a studio or a field or a quiet afternoon with available light and trust that it would respond to whatever you asked of it, without ever feeling like it was working at the edge of what it could do. It always felt like it had more to give. The reputation of this lens has not faded with time. It has deepened. Because every generation of photographers who encounters the 90mm f2 macro tends to arrive at the same conclusion, that Olympus, at its very best, was not trying to impress anyone. It was not building for reviews or for catalog pages or for the kind of attention that fades when the next product appears. It was simply trying to make something right. And with this lens, it did, not almost right. Not right for the era, not right given the constraints of what was technically achievable at the time. Right in a way that still holds up today, that still makes photographers reach for it when they can find one, that still commands the kind of quiet, serious attention and respect that most lenses from that period simply do not receive anymore. This is the lens the title is about. This is the lens that still feels perfect. And if you were lucky enough to spend real time with one, you already knew long before this list began that it was always going to be at number 1. 5 lenses, 1 era, a system that proved elegance always outlasts specification. Drop a comment and tell us which Olympus lens you still remember, still own, or wish you never sold. Subscribe to AltBuzz Lenses. There is a lot more great glass coming, and you do not want to miss where we go next. Until then, keep shooting. The best lens you ever used always had a story. This was just the beginning of ours.